Matt, welcome to The Road Not Taken, how ordinary people got out of their way and you can too. Appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. I'm
Yeah,
honored.
no, I'm really excited to talk to you. So just one kind of question to kick things off, which is if you had to pick one thing that's helped you most in getting out of your own way, what do you think that is?
No doubt in my mind, meditation has helped me get out of my way.
Okay, so can you say a bit more about that? I mean, how, either put a bit of context to it or how has it helped
Yeah,
specifically?
it changed my life. I did the whole corporate America. I ran a couple businesses, and really struggled with mental health, depression, addiction, drinking. Kind of typical stuff. I was living the American dream,
Hmm.
and but was very unsatisfied or unfulfilled the more that I was accomplishing, and the more I was adhering to the our societal definition of success. And I felt like meditation was the first thing that I tried that gave me a sense of hope and helped me to start crafting a plan from within
Hmm.
to make changes in my life to ultimately live a life where I'm happy, healthy, and strong.
It's funny. I've tried. I do meditate reasonably frequently, but when I listen to you talk, the first thing that's going through my head is, what the heck is he doing that I'm not doing? Because I can't say it's had anything like that kind of a significant impact for me. Talk me through how that journey of how it became so useful. Because I'm sure the first few times you did it, it wasn't like, well, I shouldn't assume anything, but for most people, it's a real challenge when they get started.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it took me a year or two of actively meditating to before I adopted it as a daily practice and something that I would do every day.
Hmm.
And yeah, but I started noticing ways in which I started noticing how my behavior and my actions were a larger part of the problem that I was in than I was giving that credit to.
Hmm.
And as we all know, meditation helps people, develop self-awareness. We grow new neurons in our prefrontal cortex where it's thought that we process self-awareness, compassion, empathy, all the good stuff that we all want more of. And it just helped me to see myself in a more objective light and really believe in the power of peace. And that has led me on my journey that I'm on right now.
So, what was your recipe in terms of meditation? In other words, like, was there a certain amount of time that you found you needed to do it? And I guess I'll ask one question at a time.
Yeah, I try to do 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night.
Okay,
That's
so not
at a minimum.
yeah,
Yeah.
so not an incredibly long period of time. And then, were you shutting down your mind, or were you doing other things? Were you visualizing, chanting? I don't know. How did you use that 20 minutes? Because again, I can only speak, obviously, honestly. I mean, I'm really impressed and, well, a little bit jealous actually that you've gotten such remarkable results. I mean, I'll feel some calmness, but I haven't had the experiences you've had yet.
Yeah, I've tried the whole full gamut. The visualizations, the guided meditations. What I've settled on is a simple letting go meditation, where on the up breath, I am on the out breath, letting go, and when thoughts come in my mind, I just make a conscious effort to let them go, come back to the breath, back to the mantra, and try not to take it too seriously. And yeah, it's been a practical way to kind of tune out the outside world in this busy time that we're
Hmm.
in, and tune in within.
And I think for the context of people listening, it probably would be helpful for you to put some broader perspective on the things you talked about. So I know you had an extremely rough upbringing. Can you at least kind of paint some highlights as to a little bit about your background in terms
Sure.
of how you got to where you got to, such that you ended up finding meditation to be the first place to start?
Yeah, yeah, and that is important context, and thank you for pointing that direction. I was going to bring up in addition to meditation, and it's something I read about in my book, Worth the Fight, is I've had profound transformational healing experiences with psychedelic medicines. I believe, and science supports that there's a lot of overlap between the science of meditation, the science of flow, and the science of psychedelics. They're all working on the same parts of the brain. For me, 4 years ago, I just sold a business, and I was supposed to be feeling all this joy and all this happiness, and it seemed, again, the more that I was attaining, the less I was feeling fulfilled. And I had some success or some healing, some relief from some psychedelics, and I sought out a journey to Central America with the plant medicine ayahuasca, and that was a very transformational experience for me. And it allowed me again to let go of the past hurts, the trauma. I had childhood sexual trauma in my nervous system that I'd been holding on since I was a kid. And of course, I'd gone to therapy and thought that I addressed it, but there's no way to really get at those memories with just meditation or with just psychotherapy and whatnot.
So how did you get exposed to the psychedelics piece? Because this is certainly going to be new content for, I think, some of the people listening. And I'll be honest, it's new content for me too, really, except when I was on your website and you referenced one of the books you referenced, Stealing Fire. That's going to give me a little bit of exposure, but only a little bit. So I'm particularly interested to hear a bit more about that. How did it cross your path in the first place?
Taking magic mushrooms with friends at concerts in a social setting, rock bands, music, and just really, really powerful, profound experiences. That there was an element of relief that I would feel, sustained relief. And this was back in 2012, 2013, before, when the science was really starting to get heavy about the therapeutic value. And right now, I mean, there's the most incredible science being done. Johns Hopkins is very, very bullish on these medicines as powerful healing tools for depression, PTSD, anxiety, addiction. In addition, Imperial College of London and all sorts of other prestigious, universities are really doing incredible work in this space.
Can you start by talking about how those psychedelics helped you personally? They gave me and I think I'm repeating myself a little bit, but they gave me a sense of objectivity and a sense of seeing myself in an objective manner and seeing my past hurts in an objective manner, and seeing that I am not my thoughts, I am not my emotions, I am not my past. There's something bigger going on, and helping me tap into this inherent truth, of really a larger purpose and calling ultimately as I shifted out of corporate America. And now I'm working a life of service, with my writing, and I've been advocating for the last year and a half for our United States war veterans, help them facilitate psychedelic therapy and psychedelic healing, and they're leading the way to show really everyone else that these medicines are safe. And if you have PTSD or you have depression or you have something and you've tried everything else, that these are modalities that work, and they have to be respected and held with the deepest reverence, because they're not. I mean, as you might have read in Stealing Fire, these are powerful tools of transformation, and it should not be taken lightly. There's so many things I want to ask you all at the same time here. But the first thing is, and forgive me for doing this if it doesn't help your brain, but I want to jump back slightly, because you talked about selling the business. Now, admittedly, that's a comfort zone topic for me, but it's, most people would define that as the pinnacle of success. In other words, oh my gosh, and like many people work their entire adult lives to get to that point. And it's, well, I don't know what the right word is. I mean, but it's ironic, or, there's something funny or something about you saying it. It almost sounded like that was I don't know, a wake up call that your life wasn't working. So I want you to start there, because I think that will be an easier place for people to start to comprehend your journey, and also then I think become more open minded to what you've done. Again, since I'm forgive that sounds, I hope that's not coming across as judgmental. I'm just trying to piece it together myself. So, and also what's going through my mind is, if you ran a successful business that you're able to sell, then you did learn quite a lot of skills that are very helpful,
Yes.
and I always find that fascinating. And by the way, I must admit, I bring this up on all my calls, all my podcast conversations, that even for all of us that have had sort of hellish experiences, we all got mixed message. Like, we also got some positive and empowering messages that helped us usually anyway, do well, at least in some arenas of our life. But anyway, I'm probably saying too much here, but talk about, you sold your business, and what was this journey that your head went through, that I guess that made you realize that your life wasn't working, or that you didn't feel fulfilled?
Yeah, it was my 35th birthday, October 16th, 2014. I'd sold my second business, and that night I went out for a steak with Gene, my former business partner, and John Holland, the CEO of the new business, and we had the best of the best kind of meal that Chicago would provide, with the red wine, and I met up with a dear friend of mine, Molly, that night to have her birthday drink. And while I should have been celebrating for this tremendous opportunity that I had sold a business, and not only was did we sell a business, but we partnered with a national company that was going to give us a huge opportunity to really, really go big and to start making the big dollars. And all I could think about was, holy shit, I'm free, and I'm free to pursue what's in my heart. And at that time, and it was kind of surprising. It was really, I joke with my friend Molly about how, I was, went on and on about this path that I'm on. Immediately after, having this sale, all I could think about was, how can I get back, and how can I help other people that are stuck in their trauma? Knowing that I'd made a lot of major strides myself, and knowing that this is a big deal that affects, there's 40 million, there's 40 million Matt Simpsons that are stuck in their trauma, and 90% of them won't say a word. So we have a big, massive problem with childhood sexual trauma. 1 in 5 of us have this, and it's something that's just not talked about in our society. And I wrote a big book about it, and about the things and the underlying forces that are responsible, and so on.
So it sounds like you came to this realization really, really quickly. Is that accurate, or it's sort of been?
It had been ruminating, or it had been brewing, and I think once I had signed the dotted line, I was free, and I knew that I could take this time. And then 2 months later, I was down in Costa Rica. I had that profound experience with ayahuasca, and then I spent a year in corporate America, untying and really cleaning up the mess that I'd created, and then I traveled with a backpack for nearly 2 years. All over Central and South America, Europe, and yeah.
And what was the purpose of that for you?
Just taking time to decompress. It was a healing journey, and a journey of the whole intention behind that was to figure out where I could best be of service to to the world that we find ourselves in, and yeah, taking that time that I felt was deserved. I'd worked really, really hard for a long time, and I didn't at the time, I didn't have a serious girlfriend or any children, and I was just like, what? I'm going to go and travel,
So actually, it raises an interesting point that popped into my head, is for people who can't take off and go backpacking for a year and a half, what suggestions do you have for those people where they need to heal from? I mean, you said, I'm not going to ignore what you said. I mean, you said 40 million people in this country, just in the US, were victims of sexual abuse as children. that's a colossal, and that's a colossal, it's an enormous number.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
And
Yeah.
I love that you're bringing it up, because you're right. There's obviously no question about it being a taboo subject. So what can some of those people do, where if their circumstances aren't such that they can take off that kind of time?
Yeah, I always say, and I write about this in Worth the Fight, and something that's been really important to me is, and I call it strategic withdrawal. And taking a week to maybe go on a retreat or a yoga retreat, or doing it on a smaller scale. Maybe one day a week, turning your phone on airplane mode and blocking out the world. Of course, we have to be connected, and but I think that we could all draw more firm lines with our technology devices and the external world to glean that objectivity. And but that's been a tool for me that I've used judiciously.
And when you talk about objectivity, embellish please on what I'm about to say, because earlier you talked about one of the conclusions you've drawn from psychedelics is, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my past. That was all I could get down in my notes. But to come to that objectivity that obviously most people aren't responsible for things that were done to them. Is that the goal of the strategic withdrawal? Oh.
Yeah. I think that again, we live in a time where we're all inundated with external stimuli to a degree that we've never seen before. And that these messages a lot of times are really I could say troubled or even scary when you take a look at what's going on the news and the divisiveness and when you see the way that our leaders and political figures are fisticuffs and so taking time to go within and tuning out the outside world and taking time to check in and to know truly if you're living aligned with what's inside, or if you're living aligned with external forces that might not have the best interest in your happiness and health.
So a chance to kind of think about what's most impacting your immediate environment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. An opportunity to check in and to error correct. Really, I'm a big believer that all 7 billion of us that walk this earth have their a calling, or have a truth or dharma, whatever you want to call it, and all the answers that we're looking for, that we seek so extensively externally. I believe all the answers are inside, and that's why meditation has been such a powerful tool for me, to tap in and to check in and because we're all doing this journey of life, and it's easy to get off track.
Since you mentioned meditation again, I can't help but come back to my own outcomes with it, and I know I'm not alone because I've read about other people's experiences in books, and I really feel like it's beneficial, but I can't pinpoint the same types of experiences that you have. So I don't know if you talk about this to other people, but what mistakes do you think people make around their meditation efforts?
I think we live in I like to call it an instant oatmeal society where everything's got to be now. And, the ability to work through or push through, people have a really challenging time to sit with their thoughts. And, I could reference back to my personal experience of, when I made a goal that I was going to crystallize this habit. And this was going to be a daily habit that I was going to adopt. And every day in 2015, I was going to get up before sunrise and I'm going to do this. And the amount of mind chatter that I sat through in days 20 to 30 before this became a permanent habit was, these thoughts in my mind were I was saying to myself the things that I would never say to my worst enemy, and I'm like, well, and that really started an investigation. Is like, where do these thoughts coming from, and is there something I can do about these, and that's been an impetus to further explore meditation as a tool to people call it the monkey mind, and it's something that I think can be tamed. Of course, it's an ongoing, lifelong deal. But when we see past the fact that we're not our thoughts, and every little impression that we find, we can tap into our heart space and what we're here to do in terms of work and purpose, which, as we all know, is so incredibly important for resilience and overall well-being, is having a solid foundational purpose.
How long did it take you to clarify your purpose?
Took a long time. It took a long time. I'd worked in corporate America for 13 years, and I'd had this profound experience with healing with psychedelics, and I really found my purpose and calling on month 17 of my 18-month travel journey, when I came across this veteran organization that was doing this incredible work, working with war veterans that have complex treatment-resistant PTSD, meaning they've been through all of the VA's program for a minimum of 6 months to no avail. They've effectively been given up on by Western medicine and the VA and the American people. And this organization was having tremendous results, healing with this medicine. And I knew then and there that, like, whoa, this is my life's work. This is what I'm going to be spending the next 50 years doing is promoting this as a means to help those that have fought and served. And not only has that been something that is fulfilling a duty to do what's right, but I believe is a potential solution to our troubled times. Healing the hearts and minds of those that have honor, integrity, and courage in a time where our leadership is really struggling to get along and to get things done in a cooperative manner. And what are until someone gives me a better idea, the idea that there's nothing else that is more shared than the fact that our war veterans, they no one can hide from this that notion that we have this massive suicide tragedy. 22 veterans die by their own hand each day, and it's on all of us that are enjoying these freedoms to do what's right for those that have fought. And I look at it as an opportunity to an area where we can come together. It's something we can agree on, and it's something that is rooted in love.
Did you say you facilitate those weekends?
I help promote and raise money and for the facilitation of that. Yeah, I affectionately call myself the self-appointed ambassador, civilian ambassador to the veteran suicide tragedy. And
have you observed or sat in on one of those weekends?
I haven't. Okay. I haven't. But I've met many veterans, and I've done a lot of work with them, a lot of presenting, and spent a lot of time with Marines and Army Rangers these last couple years to collaborate and actively working to speak and to get this message out, and yeah.
Can you speak to some of the benefits you've seen, or I'm most curious about is, do you know what the format is for a weekend like that? Or are you allowed to share something like that? Or
of course, usually typically there's two ceremonies where they'll go in on a Friday night and a Saturday night, and that's been the best for me. And I've come to think of it, I've had medicine ceremonies with veterans of war, but not since I've engaged this role. As I should put this out there that I don't know where these medicines fit in my life moving forward. It's something that I've done my healing, and I'm finding the biggest healing right now in the work that I'm doing. And
That's interesting. So, can I add a fourth thing to your list in terms, because you talked about meditation, psychedelic medicines, and then flow, which we haven't talked about yet. But then, work of service tied to your purpose. So again, I'm just curious, and this is total ignorance on my part. So the medicine ceremonies then are piece of that. That's when people. How do you ingest ayahuasca?
Yeah, there's typically I'll paint the picture. In the experiences, there's a big medicine scene in Costa Rica. There'll be 20 to 30 people, international travelers from all over the world that gather, and there's you have this tea. It's a really bitter kind of putridly. It's like drinking earth in a glass.
Yeah.
And it's not very pleasant, but it's the medicine comes from South America, comes from the Amazon rainforest. There's a vine and a leaf that they boil together, and it boils down almost again like a molassesy texture, and it brings on a really profound high where it raises your vibration, and it allows you to go into your nervous system and access those traumatic memories from the past, into such a degree that it's likened to 10 to 20 years of therapy in a long weekend, and that's very profound when we're talking about people that have really given in earnest, have tried their best to get at those memories. And for me, the best analogy was after I had this healing experience, was I'd worked so hard to find relief, and I was like, whoa, my whole life I've been fighting my demons with one hand, and I was like, now I have two hands, and that's why I'm a big advocate and proponent for pushing these medicines forward. I'm part of a movement of psychedelic renaissance, or psychedelics as medicines. That we're reshaping and shifting the way, rebranding essentially, rebranding these medicines to powerful powerful tools of healing, and they're also tools that allow you to I found flow through these psychedelic medicines, and and flow is another powerful state, best described as when action and awareness merge, and optimum states of consciousness. And, that's something that's been very profound in my life as well.
So after your experience with ayahuasca, does that then go, like, how did you feel afterwards? Is that when you felt this immense relief and objectivity? Was it that sudden?
Yes. The medicine, it stays with you for at least a month. And, where I always say and really, really advise people that are looking to heal that there's a 30-day window where, and science supports that our brains, that the neuroplasticity is elevated. So it's a perfect time to create healthy habits. And especially when you're still kind of in this afterglow, feeling good. And, it's a special time for people to really dig in and to ask questions around, what is it that was causing their distress, and it's a powerful tool that opens up a lot of doors.
And then with the veterans and the weekends that you're helping facilitate or raise funds for, can you speak to people you've met, veterans that you've met that have gone through those weekends, and kind of how it's helped them?
Yeah, it's been absolutely tremendous for them. An opportunity for them to let go of their war trauma. But something we found, and this is something that I read about in my book, and is that 90% of the veterans that have been through the vet program, the organization that I was advocating for, it wasn't the arm that was missing, it wasn't the foot that was blown off, it wasn't the brigade of people that were blown up in front of them. It was the childhood sexual trauma that had pushed them to go to war, because they had a warped sense of what truth is, and they had a warped ability to authentically connect with family relations and intimate partners. So they go to war to find that connection, to find that tribe, to satisfy that evolutionary driver, to feel that connection. But then when they come home, they never really had the resiliency skills to begin with. And that's why we have such a massive suicide tragedy here. But that's one of the reasons. Sebastian Junger, is the foremost expert on this topic of PTSD and homecoming and belonging. And he also attributes it to the fact that they're coming home, and we live in such an alienated, isolated world where we're unable to absorb the war trauma with them. Historically, the warriors go out and fight. They come back home. Everybody, there's a big party. We all cry the tears together. They brush off their eyes, and then everybody's good. And they don't have that right now. Often we're wondering, what are we even still fighting for? 2 wars and 17, 18 years of deployments, and it's a massive problem for our VA. And it's a problem that I'm trying to put on the lap of the American people, because I think that it's something that we can do better in supporting our vets that have fought and served.
So I don't know if I misheard this. Did you say then that there's a sort of a skewed number of people that join the military because of childhood sexual abuse? Yes. I'll reference Sebastian Junger again, but his research says that the veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are 2 times more likely to have been sexually abused in their youth than the Vietnam veterans that were picked at random by the draft. So there's 2 ways of looking at that our military is it's a two-way street. The military goes to these communities where to find candidates, but also the candidates that are going into the military. The military it's not all bad. They're providing a tremendous service for these people that are really struggling. And, not everybody comes out and falls victims of suicides afterwards. There's a lot of really good things that the military will do in terms of getting people on the right track and instilling discipline. But we're having a really, really challenging time reintegrating the veterans back into society. Yeah. That makes sense what you've said too about, the cliche would be World War II, where everybody beat Hitler and, everyone's sort of cheering on the same page. And, it does make me wonder, it's not really, I don't know if it's relevant to the topic of getting out of your own way, but to people that fought in World War I as well, but just saw, horrendous atrocities and how they were just expected to, somehow bottle it up or deal with it or never talk. When my mother remarried, she married a guy who fought in World War II, and most of these people never talked about their experiences in their entire lifetimes. And that was somehow anyway, that's a different story for a different day. But what I wanted to come back to or ask a bit more about, so you talked about in terms of getting out of your own way, just for people in general that are in a funk or stuck or looking to just progress. So certainly meditation you've talked about psychedelic medicines as being particularly helpful for people, especially if it's been significant trauma or they've tried other things and they're just not breaking through. I would define coming up with a sense of purpose. You've talked about the benefits to that. Yeah. I particularly like the strategic withdrawal, because that's something anybody could do on any given day off, certainly, in terms of just shutting out all the too much external noise. I was just curious, what else helps you nowadays with staying out of your own way? Are there other things? That's a pretty good list. Are there other things either physically or mentally? Diet's been huge. Something that I found on my travels was intermittent fasting has been a powerful tool, where basically I wait till 10 or 11 to eat my pancakes and eggs. I skip the early breakfast, and science really supports that. When we're eating on for 8 hours a day, and really anything I eat, pretty much. I eat mostly a vegetarian diet. But anything goes for 8 hours, and then I shut it down a couple hours before bed, and then wait a couple hours before I have my first meal in the morning. And it's really up-leveled my energy and fitness, waistline, everything has been something. I think that
breakfast, which means to break the fast, is the toxic sugary cereals that we've been fed by Post and Kellogg's. I think that breakfast is really the Western way of looking at breakfast has been created by the marketers, and it doesn't serve the health. Of course, you look at the waistline of the average American, it doesn't serve at all.
So you say you eat for within an 8-hour time frame each day? Is
Yeah.
that every day, or is that 5 days a week?
Yeah, I'd say 5-6 days a week, and I try to give myself a day each week where I kind of do whatever and have a couple glasses of wine and maybe eat a little more cheese than I would normally. Mm-hmm. And yeah, with the whole spirit of not taking anything too seriously with all this stuff, we just do our best and people can be, and I've been in the past trying all these different things at different times. I've been, more neurotic about discipline but that's a problem too. So it's, I've adopted the notion of just doing my best.
Yeah. What else comes to mind? Anything else that's good for your head or your body, or socially or spiritually?
I read about this in Worth the Fight that out of all of the different hacks and tools and psychedelic medicines and all these esoteric things and taboo things that I've tried, my favorite is organic raw cacao. It's the pure form chocolate that hasn't been processed and it hasn't been butchered, and it's been it's a superfood, and it's something that has provided a lot of creativity and helps my writing. It's part of my writing ritual in the morning to have a little cup of this and is something that I think helps me get into flow in a quicker manner.
It's funny you bring that up. I was going to get there because you mentioned it earlier. So can you tell us about a time when flow really helped you, or when you sort of realized how powerful it is?
Yeah. This last December, I was working on some writing deadlines, and I had really kind of put myself out on a limb with the book, and had sent a note out to the world saying, hey, this is going to be done and out and done by February 14th, a love book for Love Day. And there was multiple stretches in December and January with some edits where I was tapping into a level of focus that I didn't even know was possible. And being completely dialed in for 10, 12, sometimes even longer, writing stretches where and they talk about that in, I think the hallmark attributes of flow are timelessness, effortlessness, richness, and selflessness. And, to get in that state where time passes by, again, effortlessly, and you seem to be tapping into a higher, I don't know, like a
state of consciousness. Is that what it is?
Yeah, an altered state, but being so focused that just where things flow, and I hate to use the word flow to describe it, but where there's more. I don't know, just like the insights are just cascading one after the other, and it's been something that was really helpful with the writing, and I'm sure that the deadlines and the fact that I had to get this done and so on attributed to that, but to know that it was possible has been something that's been really special to me, to know that I have that gear. And
to tell me what you haven't shared in terms of getting in a state of flow. So you talked about, was it the raw cacao? Was it the fasting? Because you said that increased your energy. I mean, what's your recipe for? I mean, how did you hit that a bit more consistently?
Just doing the work and pushing through. And I think that last summer was the time that it really hit me. when when I really started getting in the groove, where I had all of my daily practices under control, and very, very clear, like this is the work that I'm here to do, and there's an element of grace that has happened with that happening when I don't have to expend any external energies going anywhere else, because I know exactly why I'm here, and that really helped with the writing, and it's been a deeply cathartic process for me to write about a lot of the things that we're talking about, knowing that there's so many people that are struggling right now with mental health and struggling with emotional challenges, to be able to gain strength and resilience, knowing that my words may inspire a few people to get out of their own way.
And is that the reason you wrote the book, was to inspire people to kind of learn from what you'd learned and go out and make changes for themselves?
Yeah. Really, the primary reason, and something I've done with this book, is I'm donating all proceeds to war veterans for psychedelic healing. And for me, it was I tried to raise money in this fearful climate back in 2017. And it just didn't happen. I mean, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. I raised $30,000, and that was great. But to be back here in 2019, Michael Pollan just wrote an incredible book in this space. Michael Pollan is a professor of journalism at Harvard and UC Berkeley, and he's been writing about our food system for the last 15 years. And he, at 55 years young, jumped into this psychedelic arena and shared this massive book, 400 pages, about why we're here in a position where these scientists are screaming from all over the world that these medicines work, and we have this massive amount of people that are struggling, and really he's breaking down where we're at and why we're at where we're at in such an eloquent manner that it will be extremely helpful in terms of shifting the stigma around these medicines and around consciousness and around addiction and all of these things that we're not doing a great job at right now, and that we can do better. And he's put himself out on a limb a little bit, but his book has gotten tremendous applause, and it's very brave work. And for me to be in a position to follow up that, and to know that we're in a different climate. It's 2019. We're a couple years later, and that to me, this was the greatest element or greatest avenue of service that I could be in was spending a year and a half with my head in this MacBook doing this work, doing the writing, and I wasn't a writer before this, but I've worked diligently enough where I feel like this, I'm getting great reviews, great early reviews, that this manuscript is strong enough to potentially, spread and help a lot of people that are stuck in the darkness.
Well, it's funny because thinking out loud here, I mean, one of the things I've taken from this conversation, I hope it sticks, of course, is just this notion of, you were living the expected version of what people do if they have certain business skills, and you had great success at it. And then you got to this point where when you sold the business, but when you realize actually this is nowhere near how my definition of a fulfilled life. And so massive applause to you for pursuing it. And so, logically, I'm extremely curious what's on the docket. So the book's just come out on Kindle, right?
Yes.
And then where do you want to take your time, your professional skills?
I in addition to the book, I just launched a transformational coaching business to help people that are I realize that my past experiences are a potential gift, or are a gift to share with people. My extensive experience in the corporate world and the business world, and knowing the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, and my experience with psychedelics and meditation, and overcoming trauma, and the title of my book is called Worth the Fight: Acting for a Better World, A Guide to Spirituality, Psychedelic Medicines, and Overcoming Trauma. So it's a unique offering, which I think is, and I felt this from the get-go, and I don't think I would have walked away from all that money and all this. I think that I'm out ahead of a wave of an early adopter, and as we start to shift this broken mental health paradigm towards away from these pharmaceuticals where they basically dance around on the surface to start engaging safely with the help of rigorous science, because everything's got to be done in a safe and supported manner, and I totally support that. But shifting the model in where we don't take pills every day, but we go directly to the root of the problem. There's tremendous. That's a little bit off topic, but I was going to say that MDMA, the club drug ecstasy, is in phase 3 clinical trials with our federal government, and it's going to be a legal medicine this next year, where someone with chronic depression or PTSD takes a pill, they sit on a couch, they listen to some Enya, they cry their eyes out, and 1 to 3 therapy sessions, and then they're done taking medicine. And the state or phase 2 results from maps.org is that 67%, 2/3 of people, are symptom free a year later, and they're in a better place 3 years later. So the research seems to suggest that this medicine is awakening an intuitive inner healer, where we know how to heal our ways ourselves once we get out of the way.
Mm-hmm. So you're coaching people on this, or on multiple different things that you have great skills with, and then presumably I know you're doing some speaking on it as well, correct? Yes.
Yeah, I anticipate that there'll be opportunities to speak, and I'm hopeful to get on a bunch of podcasts and get this book in the hands of influencers and people that look at some of these progressive solutions as potential opportunities. And I've been beating the drum for the last couple of years about, hey, let's come together. Our war veterans are hurting. Let's do what's right. And I'm a big believer that they can heal and show us the realities of war. So hopefully in time we can vote in different politicians and maybe end this constant cyclical karmic war that we see that is. It's 2019. We live in a planet that provides plenty, and I don't think that we should be at war. And hopefully we'll get this figured out in the next generation or two.
Well, yeah, noble work. I think that probably covers most of the things I wanted to ask you about. Are there other things that you wanted to share that have also been helpful for you in getting out of your own way? I mean, we've certainly got enough useful suggestions for listeners.
Yeah, one thing that I haven't mentioned, yoga has been a really, really huge thing. Just movement is we live in this sedentary, stagnant life where so many of us sit, behind a desk or, and just getting out and these bodies are meant to move but yoga has been special to me, but I know that so many people find relief in different ways and exercise and just being active. I always tell people to find what works for you, and that's why I present so many different things that I've tried over the last 4 years. But I wouldn't ever presuppose that something that's worked for me is going to work exactly for somebody else. And, I take a scientific approach towards life and try it out. And if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't, try something else.
No, that's absolutely. Okay. Well, so 3 quick questions to wrap up. Who would you say you've become since you had your most challenging times?
I would say, a fierce lover of life. I'm fiercely committed to the work that I'm doing now, and I'd used the word grace before, but the element of grace that I feel in engaging my life purpose is very profound. And has kept me on the straight and narrow to really keep me focused. And I'm drawing upon, a level of energy that I never would have dreamt possible. Knowing that I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing here. And that's been really, really powerful, is rooting and cementing myself in that purpose. That essentially is, and the purpose of being in service to something bigger than myself. Mm-hmm. And when I came back home, 2017 from my travel journey, the idea of helping others, when we do help others, our problems become so menial, and there's psychologists call it the helper high, but it's something that I don't think is encouraged, enough as an element to that. Hey, if you're struggling, help other people, and that's a great way to start getting out of your own way.
Well, that's another topic in and of itself. That's okay. So what would be a first step for people listening?
I would say an earnest effort at meditation. I think would be the most important thing. I think that's what these psychedelic medicines, they show us the value. So many people that have these profound experiences with psychedelics, they ultimately shift and go towards a meditation practice. The fMRIs that take scans of the brain, mm-hmm. show that the Olympic meditators, the ones that have more than 10,000 hours, and people on psychedelics, what's going on in the brain is the same. So, or very close to the same. And which seems to suggest that we can, as we deepen our meditation practices, we can get to these levels of altered states or consciousness without the use of external influence.
I hadn't intended to ask this, but it just popped into my head. I mean, it sounds like you had a really distressing, challenging childhood. My last interview was with someone who broke his neck in a water skiing accident. Many people listening, of course, I don't know how many, maybe not as many as I think, but a good number, haven't had quite such trauma to deal with. Is it fair to say, would you still subscribe most of the same things in terms of, really digging into finding your purpose, meditation, maybe not on the psychedelic medicines if the trauma's not that strong,
sure.
but finding more habits that create flow, shutting out some of the external overstimulus that we get from news and social media, maybe reconsidering some dietary things, movement, yoga, some of those things. And I know I haven't covered all of them, and but would those still kind of all check those boxes, do you think, for people in terms of getting out of their own way?
Absolutely. Yeah. All of those are going to help people live a healthier, happier, and stronger life, more aligned with what's inside and less of the noise in the outside, and that'll help people walk, a straighter path, and aligned with their calling and their greater purpose. And yeah, I think that's where we want to be if we want happiness and health and strength is living a life of purpose, because I think that's what we're here to do. We're here to be a part of something bigger, and that often gets lost on us in this busy world.
Yeah, and I also wonder if maybe that purpose, you had extra drive perhaps to find it because you had maybe more pain. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the real truth is we're all equally influenced in many unhelpful ways by the culture we're living in, and so we all need to find that purpose. So I appreciate, you talk about individuals finding their own purpose. That the more I think about this, I'm just thinking about this out loud, that actually that needs far more time and energy. You talked about the positive benefits to that. So again, I'm just connecting the dots myself, and also wanting to make this, for anyone listening, to find their own ways to take really practical steps and actions. Because what I don't want is people saying, well, I didn't have that terrible of a childhood, therefore, this doesn't apply to me. Not so. I think that we're getting the powerful breath of fresh air from you, as I did from my last person I interviewed, because you've taken that time to do the work. and now you feel free from as many influences as that most of us are subject to, saying, I want to take my own path. I don't know. Is that a fair comment? But in terms of a summary.
Yeah, yeah. I think that your point about pain. Yeah, I was in a point in 2014 where my cage was rattling so much where and I was in pain enough where I could step outside of the pale of all of these, what is acceptable and what is right, to go figure it out for myself. And and it was in the stepping outside of the pale where I first felt this love that's really been, kind of pushing my path. But yeah, I think that anybody that is looking to either heal from trauma or just upgrade their lives, we're all that these strategies can be deployed in a similar manner. I know that you're reading or have read Stealing Fire, and they talk a lot about what we're talking about, and really that we live in this incredible world, and there's so many different tools and strategies that people are using to upgrade their lives and to be the best possible versions of themselves. And psychedelics certainly are not going to be for everyone, but I think that inner peace and clarity should be for everyone. And so a mindfulness practice, or at minimum an earnest effort at adopting a meditation practice, because I think that again, that meditation is the secret sauce with all of this stuff, and the research is coming out that really supports that. It can really help provide that self-awareness that we need to see ourselves objectively.
And lastly, how can listeners keep in touch with you?
They can find me, or they can find information about my book at worththefightbook.org, and that'll lead them to my website, which is nltrans.org. And there's more information about my coaching services and speaking opportunities. And if someone just wants to reach out and say hello, that would be awesome too. And I realize that there's a sacred duty and obligation to help people that are interested in some of these esoteric taboo topics so I'm always helpful to help guide people and help others that are looking to get out of their own way.
Yeah, no, this is beautiful. I mean, there's so many people that can benefit from what you're doing, and I do applaud you for, in theory, being on this cutting edge. But the laughable part is just how many millions, if not hundreds of millions of people are included in that. So it's like talking about men and women as separate species. I mean, there's so many people that can benefit. So, but regardless, a lot of people aren't talking about the things you're talking about. So, anything I can do to help, that's wonderful. And with that, I will conclude. I mean, one of the things I like to say typically to listeners is, it's easy to sometimes to put people on pedestals when they because they've had great success in certain areas, and think somehow that we can't do that ourselves. And clearly, all of us have flaws. And so I just want to remind myself, as well as those of you listening, to instill confidence that, you can do this just as much as anyone else. And I'll include in my show notes some of the many practical suggestions that, anyone can benefit from. And that you certainly don't have to be perfect in all areas of your life in order to start making some great progress. Otherwise, in wrapping up, thanks sincerely to all of you for listening. I truly hope you got a lot from today and from the ideas that were shared. And a couple final steps. One is, do please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And then my other one will be, show notes are available on my website, which is matt-anderson.com, matt-anderson.com. And with that, I'll sign off with my favorite question. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? I'm Matt Anderson. This was The Road Not Taken.